Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and today I'm super excited because I am making a dim sum inspired cake. Now, if you've never had dim sum before, basically it's when you go to a restaurant and you get a bunch of different little dishes and they are made to share with other people. Mainly, you're going to get things that are steamed in these steamer baskets. And I love getting soup dumplings or bao buns. And I think that this tutorial is going to show you how to make something very, very similar in cake form. My family is of Chinese descent, and eating dim sum was just a family tradition. We would do it all the time, and we still do it now. And when I was a little girl, it was actually way more popular to have people pushing around carts all around the restaurant that were filled with these dim sum baskets. Now, I guess for health and safety reasons, they actually get you to order from the menu in most places. But having this experience actually allowed me to see that the color of these dim sum baskets can vary even from cart to cart. So the reason that I'm telling you this story is because I'm kind of going off of the color of the dim sum basket that I have. However, I'm actually being really haphazard with the color because I know I'm going to airbrush this and paint this later. And don't worry if the grain of your dim sum basket is not the exact same as mine, or if it's not the exact same color as maybe a picture that you're looking at, because this can really vary. You'll notice that my fondant here is super, super bumpy. The reason is because I made the fondant really, really thin because I'm going to actually place bands of fondant on this as well. Now, I did that little step there because I thought, oh, maybe I'll just do it in one go, but it doesn't look as realistic. So I'm going to go ahead and add these bands on as well. If you do a lot of fondant work, or if you're intending on doing a lot of fondant work, I highly suggest that you invest in one of these pastry cutters, because whenever you're working with bands or lines that need to be even, the pastry cutter just helps really increase that efficiency. Also, if you're wondering how I'm attaching all of the fondant to fondant, I steamed my cake with a regular clothing steamer. I will link it down in the description box below, and then I added on all of these pieces. I'm trying to mimic the bands that I see on my particular dim sum steamer basket, but you could honestly probably not even have to do those arrow shapes. You could just do it straight across. Now what I'm doing is I'm texturizing my fondant. Make sure that you do this fairly soon after you apply your fondant, or else you're going to end up with elephant skin and dry patches. The tool that I'm using kind of has like a seashell shape to it, so it makes everything indented in more than one line. If you don't have that tool, you can obviously use a toothpick or whatever else you have on hand to create that. Now I'm using this tool to indent to kind of create that space where all of the bands of wood come together. Now, there are no hard and fast rules about when to actually steam your cake, but I generally like to do it right before I'm going to place something else on the cake. Now, in order to create these little bands, all I'm doing is taking the same color of fondant we've been using the whole way through, which, by the way, I colored with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of brown, and then I'm taking little strips and pinching the ends, and then using that other green tool to really indent it in there to make it look like it's actually woven in, just like on the real basket itself. Don't be afraid to continue to retexturize, and I'm also using that fondant smoother to keep everything in place so that we don't get any bulging happening. Now for this upper portion, this is where the lid actually usually fits on. We're gonna leave our basket open, and I did use that cookie cutter to keep things in place. And nope, I didn't have to leave this to dry or anything. It just dries very quickly when you do it thick enough. Now I'm using some edible airbrush in chocolate brown, and I'm using a very hard bristled brush. The reason is I don't want this color to go on smoothly. I want it to go on very organically. When I look at dim sum baskets, especially when I'm actually being served one in a restaurant, I find they get really, really dark and saturated with color just because there's so much steam. So we really do want to make this nice and dark, and make sure to put all of that color in all of those lines. And I'm making sure to kind of put it between the bands to add that definition. Now you might be wondering, will I just freshly steam this, so isn't everything kind of sticking together? When you steam your cake, it doesn't stay super, super shiny and sticky for too long. So if you leave it for a few minutes, you're good to go with things like brushing and coloring, especially when you're doing it in a messy way like this. It's not going to wreck anything. Now I'm going to create that little piece of parchment that classically goes on top of these steamer baskets. And the reason that the parchment has holes is obviously so that that steam can escape. But a lot of dim sum items are very, very sticky, especially bao buns or things like soup dumplings. So they do put that on there to prevent any sticking. My friend requested that a giant dumpling go on top of this, so I'm going to create one. And yes, I am using the pre-packaged Rice Krispie squares I find has the perfect texture, and I don't have time to go making Rice Krispie squares just for the sake of this little tiny project. So that's why I do like to use the pre-packaged ones. The reason that I use that other fondant is just because I'm trying to use that fondant color up because I know I'm not going to be using it for anything in particular anytime soon. So I did want to bulk up that center piece by putting that fondant on. So you can just go straight to the white fondant. And of course, if you want to make this taste even better, you can definitely put some buttercream or ganache in between instead of just layering the fondant directly on. But I don't really need that much of an adhesive here because the Rice Krispie is so sticky. And because I have so much fondant on there, I know that the individual Rice Krispies are not going to actually show through. Folding actual dumplings is a huge art, and I do not profess to be able to do it perfectly at all. I'm just going off of what I have seen. I wish I could say that my grandmother or some great aunt taught me how to fold dumplings the traditional way, but I actually just kind of learned off of the internet. So it's not the greatest. I do need to work on it, but I think for fondant work, I can get away with it. Now with that top portion, you want to cut it off, and then we're going to create the classic indent that goes at the top of these dumplings. So I styled these more like a soup dumpling, also called a xiulong bao, but if you don't want to style it like that, you can just leave it flat and it'll look more like a bun. And there we have it, our dim sum steamer basket with just one giant dumpling or bun inside of there. Very reminiscent of that Disney short Bao. I absolutely love that Disney short, and I would actually love to create that character one day. And I really wanted to add legs and everything to this particular cake, but we're gonna leave this one as is for my friend because she's going to be using it for something in particular. So let's get into the pricing of this cake. So of course, with this cake, it's very custom. This is something that I would not just have on hand at the bakery. This would be a custom order only. This is a 6-inch, and it's also a slight bit taller than your average 6-inch, I would say. So I would charge $175 for this cake. We have a lot of different things going on. Although simplistic in the way that it looks, there is still a lot of things that go into this cake. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!